and I think it came from one of the stories in the AA book, which was, you reach your bottom when of your pit when you're ready to stop.
Welcome to Memoirs of a Fitness Trainer podcast. Today, we are talking about alcohol. And not just alcohol's topic, we're going to actually get into a little bit of a personal topic for our co-host here, the wonderful Mr. Tyler Johnson here. We're going to be talking about his journey with alcohol and some of kind of the backstory on what brought him here with us here today, and generally how alcoholism has really kind of colored some of his training. So, Tyler, first off, how you doing there, bud?
Today was an interesting day.
Yeah?
Yeah, last night I was flossing my teeth and a tooth fell out. And I'm 30 years old. It's kind of a different scenario when your tooth falls out at this age.
Don't do drugs,
Not
kids.
not quite as exciting. Okay, it wasn't like actually like a full tooth. It was a crown, but it's like, yeah, like my crown fell
Oh,
out of my mouth and like dropped in the sink, and caught it and I'm like, oh shoot. Anyways, I grabbed it and shoved it right back in, and then
I don't think that's how that works.
anyway, it worked. So today my offices didn't open up until 8 a.m. So I still went to work and just, did my morning client, and then was hopefully trying to plan to meet and do this later today because it's Friday. I don't want to go through the weekend without having my crown in my mouth and all of a sudden, like, I don't know, choke on it and die while eating or something. Have it fall out,
Solid.
or just stick
Okay.
to like liquids all day. So yeah, they couldn't get me in until like 10 o'clock, which is the middle of my day when it comes to clients. So I had to
Mhm.
like cancel all my clients for like the afternoon. I was like, it was kind of crappy. Oh, yeah.
It's been an interesting couple days for you then.
I mean, just from last night till now, but I mean, I still went on a nice hike, took a nap this afternoon, chillaxed. I mean, what else you gonna do? Kind of take the L for the day, but move on.
Yes. All right. Well, dude, let's go ahead and dive on into her. Today we're talking about your history with alcohol and kind of how that's gone into training and how that used to affect it. And that's kind of what I want to focus on is how habits outside of how we train, like the actual act of us training, tend to actually color the way that we train and can be at the detriment, even though you might not be walking into a client drunk or even hungover necessarily. It's still going to affect how you train. So we'll kind of break it
Yeah.
down into a few different parts. On first, let's talk about what your history with alcoholism was, kind of your journey, as much or as little as you want to share. I know it's a pretty sensitive topic, so I'm not going to draw too much that you're not giving me, and trying to get into how alcohol and recreational things that people might be doing outside of their training career might actually be impacting their success in training. So, my man, it's your episode. Lay it on me.
All for me. Wow.
I
No,
know,
I'm
you're
just
so
kidding.
special.
I mean, my sensitivity as far as like talking about alcohol or what it was to me, it was definitely a little bit more. I wanted to like personal anonymity. I can never say that word right, but it's kind of like part of the AA program. Like I was trying to be very, hidden about it kind of at the start, was kind of open, but not too open. Now it's like I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to somebody on the bus stop. I'll go to my grandma, like anything about it. Like as far as being completely open about my alcoholism and how I abused it and like my life up until now. I got no shame in the game. Like I was just a terrible alcoholic, and it wasn't like showing in the signs of being drunk at work or putting bourbon in my coffee. But for me, my stents would come from going out on the weekends and getting to a point where I thought everybody's goal was to drink until they're blacked out. Lo and behold, that was not a goal of everybody. In fact, actually blacking out isn't really a common thing for most drinkers. Didn't know that. But growing up, alcohol was always around for me. So since I was 12 years old, did I start drinking or, abusing drugs like pot or other things. And so for the longest time, I was always, I looked at alcohol as my source of being my energetic, fun self because people would, be around me when I was younger, and I was always providing the alcohol and being the party guy. People were like, dude, like, I want to be around this guy because he's got all the booze, he threw the parties. Then through
You're the
college, it
guy.
kind of, yeah, like it was our house was the party house. People would like walk through like Friday, Saturday night, and there's always a function going on. And then college, just an extension of high school. I never grew out of that phase. I just kept on drinking, and then I was by my lonesome self. So my no mom, no parents, no outside forces to stop me from doing whatever I wanted to do, and just progressively led to worse and worse until after college. Where after college, that's kind of where everything kind of came to the end of what is the career of fun. Like things were fun until I kind of hit after college, where it's like I was still drinking like that freshman in college, trying to black out on Friday nights as a adult in a professional field, you know. And when it comes to like personal training, my first personal training job out of college, I was in Sonoma, so my hometown, around all my friends that were still going to the same bar doing the same thing. And so the tricky thing about being a drunk or being an alcoholic in your hometown and training people and seeing friends that everybody talks about what has happened over the weekend. I had no perception of the things I was doing outside of work that were affecting me in work. And I'll give you one of the worst examples. So one time I got so shit faced, just to put it out there. I wasn't even like past drunk. I was just gone. I went
You
back
mean?
to my old house. Yeah.
Oh,
So I went
yeah.
back to
I
my
was
old.
gonna say I'm thinking of like you dragging me out of Sully's. You remember that?
Yeah, man. Okay, so I was like that, but yeah, like it was pretty bad. So I have no memory of this story, but I went back to the old house I used to live in when I grew up as a kid. My mom and nobody lives there anymore. There was a family there, and I was banging on the door trying to get into this house. This woman called the police. Luckily, like my mom had like her mother senses, and she came down the road at the same time that the cops put me in handcuffs and were going to take me away. And like she talked him into somehow letting me go into her care to take me home. And so I don't remember any of this. But come on to the next week of training, I go back into the work. I'm training clients. I'm sitting at the front desk, and this woman comes walking in, and she comes up to me. And she goes, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I was like, "Yeah, no. What's up? You looking for training?" She goes, "You were at my house," and I was like, "When?" She goes, I was the one that on Friday night," and my heart just sank. This was somebody that I
Was
knew. Yeah. So like everything about me just like dropped because I'm like I thought it was just some random family, and like to me like those events would happen, and I'd forget about it the next day. So that's the insanity of alcoholism, is we get into these pits of like of just like disgust, and then the next day it's like, ah, well, that was yesterday, like I'm gonna move on. Meanwhile, a normal person would have done that event, got in handcuffs, and been like, this is a moment of I need to change, I need to make a change. Me, that was just a Friday night. Like,
rock bottom,
right.
but now it's just another Tuesday kind of deal. Yeah.
I got too many of those stories, and those are called war stories in the AA program. We try to keep those limited and talk more about the recovery. But, anyways, so this happened. This woman's like looking at me. I'm just like, my heart sank. And it was awkward around the gym, the setting. Like, she took classes with me. She was an instructor too. It was just messy. And I still had to see her at like, other events. Like, I was coaching football and like, so, anyways,
The
let's
shame,
fast forward.
essentially. Yeah.
Uh, let's fast forward a little bit in time. So that is the progression. That is the beginning of training. But towards the end, before I stopped training, I was with you, right? And you remember us up in Rockland, like on this podcast, we've even talked about before. The reason why we got so close is we would drink and play chess, big chess
Yep.
players. Yeah. But the difference is, I don't, I can't speak for your preference or your ability to do it, but when you showed up on Monday, you showed up for your clients, and it
Yep.
was you were still programming, you were still there. The difference between like a hard drinker like yourself who can put down alcohol and an alcoholic is I can't steer away from that first drink and stop. I can't choose to stay stopped. If I were to decide to stop drinking and without AA or without my program and without like, being involved in it, I could stay stopped for a little bit, but eventually it would progress and come back and I'd black out and I'd be in these stages. So you could stop and be like, hey, I'm going to train for 6 months to go in a bodybuilding show. Why not? And it's a choice.
Well, to give you a little bit of kickback on that one because I don't know if you remember a big part of what that 6 month was, which a couple years ago I did my first show in many years in bodybuilding, and one of the things I had to do for that was not drink, and not because drinking was going to be at such a detriment to my competition. A lot of it was because I was starting to really worry that me and you were in the same boat. I
Yeah.
remember kind of sitting there going, "Oh my God, if I can't make it the 6 months without drinking," which the show was like in October, and then me and you were in Hawaii like a month
November.
later to break that 6 months. And dude, I remember making that deal with myself so vividly back in March that year. If I can't go 6 months without drinking, this might be something that you gotta say, hey, this isn't your deal anymore. So I appreciate the confidence, my man, but I promise you, I was right on that ledge, going, "Ooh, that's a big drop."
Yeah. I remember you used a book. Was it Alan Carr's Easy Way?
Dude, love that book. I've given it to
Yeah.
so many people. That is a phenomenal book.
So I didn't use it for alcohol. I used it for tobacco. So Alan Carr's
Works.
Easy Way worked for me for tobacco as far as being able to just put down vaping and not never look at it the same way again. Would highly recommend to anybody who's listening to this, like maybe if you think you have a problem with alcohol or tobacco, and it's a good tool.
He
Binge
has a
eating
one on
too.
binge eating that I gave to a client of mine who we've been working in therapy for 2 years to stop the binge eating. Gave her that
Yeah.
book because I was just at wit's end going, well, I mean, this helped me with alcohol. So here you go. And dude, she nipped it in the butt in like 3 months. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
I,
I was
I
floored.
great book.
Anyway, yeah.
Alan Carr, great guy. So, when I think about like the last parts of my training cycle, so when I was up in Rockland with you, is I was not showing up for clients. Like when it came to like the Monday and I'm supposed to be there and be present, I was out of sync, out of focus. I didn't want to be there. I hadn't planned workouts. I was just going through the motions. Everybody was getting the same routine every day. I was doing all the things of a failing trainer. And I was relying on just my backing of knowledge and my skill set and energy of just being able to put out a show. And so my sales tanked. They were always up and down based off if I was sober or not. I was in and out of relationships with people. I couldn't hold or maintain anything. And it felt like I was there for a lot longer than I was. I was there for 8 months.
Dude, it
It felt,
felt like it was longer than 8 months. Are you kidding me?
I feel like we have like 4 years of memories packed in the 8 months.
Well, dude, every day for like 8 months straight, me and you were hanging out from going to
Yeah.
work and spending our day doing that to getting home and then just getting blasted playing chess to going out on the weekends to get blasted and be a bunch of idiots. Like we did a lot of friendship in a very short period of time.
Yes. I mean, not even that, but all the other trainers too. And I mean, I won't blast any of the other trainers, but I mean, like our environment up there was like everybody was drinking, everybody was using drugs, everybody
Oh
was
yeah.
going out and having a lot of fun and just partying. It was just like it felt like being in a frat. Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, there's an initiation, like there's pledging, there's we pretty much had all of it. Yeah, there really was. There was hazing. We had literally a frat-esque environment of just trainers.
No wonder it didn't work.
Yeah, all right. I mean, a lot of good memories, a lot of good memories. But on the inside, which you probably remember a lot of this, is what I experienced with my drinking is I had these things that weren't just blackouts, but I'd have dark outs, or I don't know how they kind of say it, but I would drink, I would do something that it would make me feel like a demoralized human being, like I had just done something or like had just projected a personality that was so diminishing to who I really am morally that I felt like just crawling into a hole and just dying. But I wouldn't do it as far as that, as far as like crawling into a hole and dying, but like I would just lock myself in my bedroom and turn off the lights and just, watch a show all day long, and just that would be my day. That'd be my weekends. Going out on a Friday night and then spending 2 days of just dark room, no social contact, just feeling like I just, haven't done anything, going into Monday morning trying to put on a smile. So that leads to a lot of depression, a lot of, anxiety, a lot of, feeling like you're not doing enough in the world. And it was terrible. It was a terrible way to live. That kept on going for a long time till finally, kind of through a relationship and through other means, did I kind of just quit and move down to San Diego and just pursued
Oh,
pretty much more drinking. But yeah,
okay. Well, before we kind of go to that side of things, and not to like, brush it off or anything, but
yeah.
with the drinking and the going into the Monday. With that, do you have any type of specific examples other than like, all right, the lacks in programming and things like that, which that's just the more disordered your life is as a trainer, the more disordered your training is going to be. So if you're the type of
Hmm.
person that's got the dirty room and is always late and just all of these things, it starts to build and build and build and build and just starts to take away from all of it.
Right.
But do you feel that it was the lack of preparedness, or was it the lack of mental sharpness that kind of put you down? Or if you kind of had to put your thumb on one or two parts of the alcoholism that really kind of was so, we'll say, my God, uncontinuable, but there's a better term for that.
Let me put in perspective what it felt like. It felt like going into a classroom and your homework's due and you haven't done the assignment. So
Mm,
you're showing up to class, you're there, the teacher's doing like the introduction, talking, and you're filling in the questionnaire like in the moment. Like it just felt so unprepared, lacking in basis. Everybody else, I feel like everybody's looking at you like, oh, he didn't do any of this work. And you feel like all eyes are on you, and realistically people are not really perceiving, they're in their own world and you're just believing all these non-reality things. And then when I'd go into a session, it felt rushed. It'd feel like I'm not coming in with a true plan. I may have felt like it, but I'm just going off of what we did with this client, what I know they can do, what they're capable of, and just, basically BSing a workout as they're just showing up and
you're
just
not
saying,
really
hey, well,
present.
I'm not actually present. Like I'm 70% in there. I'm 30% thinking about, my vape pen that I have in my locker, or, how I'm going to drink that weekend. Like there's no basis. So that's kind of like that preparedness in a very specific example of like that demoralization part, which is a word in the program. But I had a small group training where I had these entrepreneurs, which this group of people,
Yeah, I remember
and
that group.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we were training to do a Spartan race, which we ended up doing, but we had all planned to go out on this beautiful hike, planned on it like on our day off. And, the night before, what did I do instead of like getting good rest and sleeping? Well, it's my Friday. Of course, I'm going to go out. I ended up blacking out. I ended up, walking home through some woods, lost my phone, don't remember much of the day. I ended up in bed just regretting and feeling like I just didn't want to do life. And, had to go find my phone, which apparently a couple found it. And then they called my mom, and my mom's calling me. And we're going through, it was a whole roundabout, like having to
Whole
go on
thing.
my iPad. Anyways, I finally get my phone, and what do you know? There's like 15 missed calls from this group who it's like, hey, you're supposed to meet up with us. You just didn't show. It's like,
Oof.
how disrespectful is that? That I planned this big event. They're all excited. We're doing this. We're training. And then it comes to the time to like execute, and I'm not there. Do you know how hard
Damn.
it was to like, you know, finally like get a hold of them, like, hey guys, sorry, I had a bad night, I lost my phone, I apologize, I wasn't there, I'll see you guys on Tuesday. And then to go up on Tuesday and there's like, so like, oh my god, like how you lost your phone, what really happened? And to just look them in the eyes and just pretty much just lie and be like, oh man, just, one of those nights, just don't know what happened, just went out drinking, made bad decisions. And they're like, oh yeah, we understand. And one of them was actually a close friend who he had actually gone through recovery and he was trying to help me. He was one of the guys in that group. He felt so offended by my not showing up that he dropped out. He was like, "Hey man,
Yeah,
like I just felt so disrespected and that was so not cool and I don't know how to be here with you, so I'm not going to do this." And at that point I was like, "Fuck."
that's fair.
I
Yeah, that sucks. It's a cold reality moment, but that's one of those. All right, I see how we got here. That's mine. Damn.
yeah. But I mean, like you create these personal relationships and these people like look up to you even though they were older entrepreneurs making millions of dollars, business owners, like having their whole lives, they look
Yeah.
at you as an authoritative figure. To me, it's like I'm their coach, I'm their teacher, an influence to them. My presentation of myself, it can help them through their week. Or, you know, if they're having a bad time, they can at least say, oh, well, Tyler's got great energy. I can at least go to him. I know he's a solid grounding or foundation. But at that moment, to just fail that man and fail him so hard like that, I mean, it took a long time to build back that trust. Like I had to like really try to work on myself. I tried to get sober when I was up there, if you remember that stent. Like eventually we started talking again and I talked to him more when I moved to San Diego, but I lost touch. But yeah, it was rough. It was very rough.
Those cold moments, those are the ones that really get you to want to make the change and really realize that things are happening. I mean, to use business as a parallel, you only understand how well a system's working or lack thereof when you end up losing people or someone ends up having a bad experience because they didn't get something or something didn't happen. It's you do kind of have to burn your hand on the stove to really realize that there is an issue. I mean, how nice would it be if we were all so self-aware to realize how our actions were leading to something negative happening? That would be
Yeah.
that would make life just probably a little too easy, I think. But damn, I didn't. God, I forgot about that little small group and the fumble there.
I felt bad. The rest of them were kind of like understanding. I'm sure they were as adults. They've all made their mistakes. One of them with the Chico, with like they knew Chico, so we, you know, they knew the party school aspect, and we had, you know, stories we told. So there, I mean, that one relationship was tough to repair. In fact, I should probably reach back out because I haven't talked to him in a long time, and I'm sure it'd be a great amends for me to make now that I think about it.
Well, I
Um,
mean, even amends aside, can you imagine how proud he's going to be? Like when you get a client that you run into, or with like people that I've mentored over the years, like when you find out someone who you didn't think was going to make it or didn't think was going to do well, and they circle back having taken some of the things that you've given them or what have you, and they've made this massive change. Like, can you imagine how good that guy's going to feel when he hears from you, like, "Hey, I'm actually still sober." That dude's gonna you're gonna make his day. So yeah, I really think you should.
yeah, it'd be a good. I still got his number. I'll reach out. Definitely, definitely will. Maybe I'll convince him to come do a Spartan race. That was one of the big
Please, if you do a
failures.
Spartan race, I need you to show up 20 minutes late, just for me.
You know, I would never. I'm always early, always early. So, I mean, I took a lot of those failures, and what I would say to, you know, somebody who's experiencing those, because this isn't just going to translate to just personal training. Alcohol and not showing up in that sense for any career or any job, or even just if you work at Target. You know, when you're failing in that aspect to just show up for yourself and the business is just kind of letting it go on, it doesn't mean it's right, right? You're taking away from your learning and somebody else's. To some extent, I wasn't providing lifetime of value. Although it's a corporation, I know we have our own opinions about it. These people were putting resources and funding and had medical and had dental for me, and they had faith as a corporation that I was coming in and showing up and being a trainer and you know, projecting a sense of health. I can't remember their mission statement now, though they made me memorize it.
God, I
Can
could.
you?
I
Oh,
no.
uh,
I feel like
uh,
I can maybe, but like I'm pretty confident I'm gonna butcher it.
yeah,
But doesn't really matter. I don't think it
yeah,
mattered when we had to learn it either. I mean, I never in any professional setting other than like hiring did I ever
yeah,
have to like recite that stupid saying.
yeah.
Huh.
Anyways, well, like that's, I mean, that can go for any job. So, I mean, we
Yeah.
fast forward a little bit, we go to my other careers. I was a bar back. Back then, I mean, bar back's a whole different scenario. You duck your head, you have no personal contact. It was a perfect stint for an alcoholic because one, you're around a lot of alcohol, everybody there is an alcoholic. It's all about drinking, the environment, they're understanding. If you want to call out of a shift because you're sick, they don't, if we got people to replace you who want to work. So it's a whole different type of environment. But we move forward to like my career as an AV tech with my brother. There's one time I went out to a buddy's birthday party and it was on a Wednesday night and it was out in 45 minutes in the boonies on a river and we drank and I smoked pot and was up until like 3:30 in the morning. Had to wake
Uh,
up at 5:15 to drive 2 hours to the job site where I worked outdoors building a pergola all day and I monster drinked, energy drinked and put in work, but my God, I don't even remember that day, to be honest. Like I have no idea the visuality of like what I did during that day, which is so scary in the sense, but days would just fly by. And that wasn't that I was drunk or like, was drinking in order to like do the hair of the dog on the way to the work,
no.
but it's just like these senses of just not being there mentally. I know alcohol affects your memory basis and affects your brain and your whole system. It's literally a poison that your
Yep.
body consumes. I think you talked about this earlier. Didn't you just you just made something on Instagram
Yeah, I
or
just
video?
did a TikTok video that was specifically on alcohol and its dampening of protein synthesis and your body's ability to recover.
Mm,
Yeah, but like alcohol, I could make an hour-long video of how absolutely worthless alcohol is. A lot of
right.
fun if for if you're someone that doesn't have that has I don't say the ability to handle it, but more so the ability to accurately control your consumption is probably a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, alcohol's garbage.
You know what that like the FDA's like recommended alcohol usage per week if you are a drinker, what it is, like
Oh
reality?
God, no.
It's like 3 beers. And
A
it's like it's
day?
all no, a week.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that
Like
tracks to me. I can get behind that recommendation. Yeah, sure.
not even a pint. And like it's like to be an alcoholic or something like that, it's like if you have 2 drinks, I think something like that, or 3 drinks, like and you're drinking maybe 15 or plus a week, that's way beyond that's like in their description that's like you're an alcoholic.
That one. I mean,
Yeah, I forget the description, but like you think like European, like the old grab a pint at lunch
yeah.
or after work, right? It's like that's so bad. Like as far as like as creating a, a pit in the stomach, or as far as dampening your growth cycle, as far as using alcohol. I hate the one, oh God, the argument that your body creates alcohol, so it's a natural substance, so you should be able to have it. Have you ever heard that?
Those arsenic and rattlesnake poison and radium, they all kill you just the same. Like that's not
Well,
special. Take enough
yeah,
potassium and dose yourself with enough of it. Congratulations, your heart stops.
that I did not know.
Yeah, you don't have enough potassium, your heart stops. You have too much potassium, your heart stops. That's kind of interesting like that.
Wow,
Water does the same thing, by the way.
you can drown.
Yeah, death by osmosis, like horrible way to die.
Yeah, I just think Osmosis Jones.
Every time I talk about water, I use that analogy with water to the dose makes the poison chemistry, right?
Yeah,
How much or how little of something dictates what that specific compound does. Every
yeah.
time, death via osmosis in my mind, Osmosis Jones and the pill guy with the blaster
My
running
God,
around. Oh my God.
why is it I don't remember that? I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid.
Oh, because
I,
there's no reason to rewatch it. I've seen it
there's
the one
always a
time.
reason. Like The Little Mermaid, I don't think I'll ever see again unless I have a daughter or something like that.
Don't
Eh,
lie. I know you watch Frozen. It's okay.
Even then, I'd probably be playing chess on my phone and be like, "Yeah, cool. What you got going on over there?"
All right, so let's all right, I kind of know the whole journey from there and kind of like where we go on that side. And uh one of the things I want to think about with this or like kind of frame our conversation more towards is a lot of these things, I feel like what we talk about, it's the massive negative is the thing I think people look for when they are consuming alcohol or they think they have a problem. Or at least that was kind of like how I used to justify it myself to make my disordered drinking seem less like bad. Was all right, I'm not getting hauled away in handcuffs. I don't have a DUI. It's like bad as my drinking got at times. There really wasn't a bad time that I can think back to like, man, that's rock bottom. That's got my car around a tree or, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the things that you were talking about here, even though like you had bad things happen, like all right, the banging on like your old home to try to get in and like getting hauled off or missing showing up to something. None of those are in itself necessarily, I feel like rock bottom moments, but they're things that kind of you really felt affected your ability to show up in a professional manner and do kind of the basic tasks. And I'm probably doing a horrible job on phrasing this correctly, but I feel like a lot of times people don't realize how much their behaviors outside of the training and what they do bleed into their ability to accurately help people and show up in a professional manner, prepared, ready to go, and being present minded. I mean, do you feel that someone can have frequent alcohol consumption and still do so, or do you think it's more if you, God, I'm doing a horrible job on like phrasing my question the way I want it to be, to it sound. Do you feel that it's possible to still have that level of professionalism and be there with frequent alcohol consumption, or do you feel that frequent alcohol consumption is just an inherent thing that's going to lead to improfessionalism? If that makes sense.
I, I mean, there's definitely people that drink and they still can do the normal daily actions. I've seen it firsthand of, owners of businesses that will go out, drink, and, like even my AV guy that I used to work for, my boss during Christmas time, we went out and drank and, we went out hard and, he was able to show up on Monday and still do his thing. And it's people have a different mentality around it, but he was also not going home and drinking nightly and smoking pot. He had kids and other things outside of it. So people can still go out and inherently have fun with alcohol. The problem with me is I couldn't stop drinking. Like there was no having one casual beer and being like, hey, like I'm good. Like as soon as I had one, a craving would come in and it'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, how am I going to get my next? And if I was around people and I was scared that they were going to see how much I was drinking, it'd be like, where am I going to hide my alcohol? How am I going to make sure I'm going to have enough for later? If I was leaving the bars and I knew that people were going to be going home, it's like, hey, I want to swing by a store so I can make sure that I have alcohol so when I get home, I can continue drinking. So my intake would be like, I would drink until I would have to be forced to stop, meaning like either by being so drunk I'd need to pass out or by other means, blacking
Okay.
out and not remembering. So that
How
is when I see somebody else, do I think it's possible? Yeah, that somebody can go out and be a casual drinker. That's not impossible. Do I see it affecting their career? No. I mean, you can look at people who run. I mean, or even like the promotion of alcohol at big events like Spartan races. We were just talking about this, right? At the end of Spartan race, if you're above 21 and up, you get a bristle, you get a bracelet, and you get to go over to the concession stand and get a free beer, pint. Like
okay.
everybody goes there and they cheers and they have a good time. I mean, there's a little bit back and forth.
I get that it's probably going to have to be a case by case thing. And I guess where I'm trying to lead this now is how do we identify what these destructive patterns are? Because like we've already talked about it here today that you're not necessarily going to always have these big detrimental or kind of rock bottom moments where you are going to jail or you have gotten the DUI or X, Y, and Z. How do you identify what habits, what things that are happening in your day to day that are impacting your career? Because we have to identify the problem. And if I remember the AA steps, one of the first things to deal with is that you do have to identify that you have a problem. But how do you
Right.
identify that you have a problem when it comes down to, say, more disordered drinking?
I'd say, you're not always going to get the person that tells you like, "Hey man, like I think you have a problem, you should seek help." That never really happened with me. Nobody really like stopped and had a conversation like, "Hey man, like you might be an alcoholic." Nobody ever said that to me. What happened was at a certain stance, I knew people that went through the program, like my brother, I went, other people that were in it already. Some of them, one of them, my sponsor, actually, who I helped, originally when he was a bad alcoholic and hadn't recovered, I had helped him, but I didn't assimilate that I was an alcoholic. I just assumed, oh man, he's really bad. This is him. Let's go
Mm,
back to when you talked about like the bottom, right? You said not necessarily did you feel like you were at the bottom. So everybody's bottom is different, right? That being arrested and put in handcuffs when I knocked on that house could have been somebody's bottom. That should have been mine. There's so many instances. But when it comes to relating when that bottom appears, there's a big saying, and I think it came from one of the stories in the AA book, which was, you reach your bottom when of your pit when you're ready to stop digging.
mm,
So when you're ready
I
to
like
put down the
that.
shovel. So that was that when I heard that saying, I loved it. I sat with it. I'm like that makes a lot of sense to me, and I've shared that multiple times with other people too. It's like, hey,
Hey,
like when you hit,
Tyler, say
yeah,
that one more time for me. Just in its completion. You reach your bottom when you stop digging.
that's it.
No, no,
So when you're so to completion, this would be like you've reached your bottom when you're ready to stop digging, and when you're ready to put down the shovel. So
clip
the
that,
moment that
Tommy.
so like if you can recognize that point and ask for help, that's when somebody can make the transition. And some of the near say signs, as far as like if somebody feels like they might be an alcoholic, my biggest thing, if I was going to share to anybody, because for me, what worked is going to the AA program, getting a sponsor, and working through the big book, which is the big book is what AA is primarily, guided to. Although there's a lot of meetings that aren't centered around the book. And I've heard many stories through this podcast about people, in Texas or all over the country where it's like they didn't even know what the big book was. They just went to meetings and just I thought it was all about meetings, but there's a book out there that if you feel like alcohol is a problem for you and you feel like when you drink that you can't stay stopped, and if you think you have a problem, it's worth going to one of these meetings, which you can find them anywhere. It's all across the entire world. You can go onto just onto a Google and search AA meetings near me and go check one
Yeah.
out and go find somebody and just go check it out. Like it's harmless as far as finding it. It took me years to ask for help. Some of the telltale signs for me was that, I would stop numerous times. I couldn't say stopped. I'd stop for 3 months, say I'm done with alcohol, I'm quitting. All of a sudden it would trickle in my mind like, hey, you can have one. Then the next week, hey, you can have two. Hey, you should go to that party. All right, let's start smoking pot again. All right, let's go drinking this weekend. All right, well, now I'm out drinking, so now it's gonna progress. And it would get back to exactly where it was, and I would feel
Okay.
dark, I'd have those dark days, and so that's kind of like the progression of the disease for me.
I get that side of it, and I guess more of what I'm trying to talk about here is trainers go through many different things. Like we all have our vices and all have different levels of control with it. And I feel like a lot of these things bleed in, whether it's like a common one I think any trainer could probably associate well with is staying up late to watch Netflix. As like
Yeah,
mundane and gentle as that is. Well,
yeah,
all right, you end up not being able to say stopped and you end up keep going through episodes and now you end up being sleep deprived for your 6 a.m. Spartan class that you're teaching.
yeah,
And yeah, you do that once, no big deal. Same way as you show up hungover once, no big deal. But now you're starting to let this habit bleed in to where, man, God, I just don't have the energy at my 6 a.m. class. And I don't know why people keep falling off. Because, and we know, because we're looking at it, this guy's showing up completely sleep deprived and he's trying to bring this energy to this high energy class. He's coming in there probably sauntering. Maybe he didn't even shower the night before because, all right, I was up till 2 in the morning. I had to be up at 5. But how do you identify that you might have something that needs to get changed? How do you identify in your training practice that, man, something I'm doing that's not training is really affecting my ability to be a good trainer? And
Yeah.
I mean, outside of just messing up 50 times in a row and hitting your quote unquote rock bottom or letting your training practice just completely wither away, how do you identify that? Because I got to be honest with you, I don't much have an answer.
If it's the earwig in your head, I would say biggest thing is to write in a journal and to recognize it. Like here's something is I have a journal I've written in over the last, I don't know, 6 years. And recently I actually went through and I reread the entire journal. And I went through pages and
Really?
pages of information. Oh yeah.
I got a
And
couple
it's like,
journals that like hesitant to pick up again, but I'm like, I remember what I was going through then.
yeah.
I don't know if I want to go down memory lane.
Yeah, it's the funniest thing is it's I can't remember where I heard it, but it's like you never journal when you're truly happy. You journal when you got things to think about and you're somewhat sad. It's kind of like the best time to journal so you can actually put these thoughts on paper. But when I go back through that journal and I look at a lot of the points, there's many times where I said in this journal, recognizing way early on, I have a problem with alcohol and I can't stay stopped. And I like there was so much information back then that I was like, if I would have just shared that with people, that's the hardest thing. I mean, it may be different for women than it is for men. I can't speak for women. I mean, social circles are a little bit different, but it's like the whole thing as far as men, like
I
we
think
don't
you're
share
onto something.
emotions.
No, I think you're onto something there with that actually. Yeah, keep cooking. I think you're onto something.
But if I were to have like read that journal multiple times and like, hey, I'm writing these thoughts down. Maybe I need to bring this to somebody and gotten, it's just getting a therapist, unless you have good medical, it can be so expensive. Like my last therapist was like $200 an hour. And for the regular person, like that's how are you gonna make that money? Like
That's
and
wild.
right? So it's super expensive. Like if you're meeting with them once a month, it's 60 minutes and they want like, hey, like it's just like starting a training program, like, oh, we got to go through the basics and here's the next step. And then they, dive into topics that they think are affecting you. And it's like maybe you don't get about around to what really is affecting you with alcohol. Yeah. Like these things that I used to like write down or share, like didn't want to share. When I got into the AA program and I'm going through the meetings and was meeting with a sponsor, like I had to actually share these internal feelings and thoughts with a group consciousness, something that I had never done. And here are all these people that could understand and related with their experiences that I was able to grasp onto and go, oh my God, I'm not the only one going through this. So that is the biggest part. And that's why I say, get to a meeting if you feel like it's a problem for alcohol for you, like just go find some people and go talk about what you're experiencing and maybe you'll find something that relates and that you can get recovered.
Dude, I like that a lot. Because like what I kind of took from that, and I kind of found my own meaning, but it's sharing and being open with other individuals that are somehow connected to what you're doing. They, of course, alcoholism and meeting with other alcoholics in the AA program, it's like pretty easy to have someone with a lens on the other side identify problems with the drinking that you're doing because it's, well, all right, you've been through the rabbit hole enough times. In the
Yeah.
training world, I think it might be really helpful for people to. We've talked about the need for community in trainers a lot, but to have a group of individuals available to you that you can be completely open with, like man, back to the hypothetical, 6 a.m. Spartan group. To have a group of trainers that you feel confident enough that are established enough in their skill set to be able to go to them and go, hey, my 6 a.m. class is really hurting. And to be open enough and to not have ego and just go, hey, I'm not doing well here. Do you mind helping me figure out what it is and to be able to share with people? Which, if you're not having your 6 a.m. going well, you go through the basic steps with trainers enough of like, all right, are you showing up at the program? Are you showing up on time? Like the kind of more obvious reasons why a training program might be failing from a trainer perspective. Eventually, these guys are going to get to, dude, well, yeah, you're showing up off of 3 hours of sleep. Of course, no one's
Yeah.
sticking around. You've got no energy after class. You can't give any answers with any type of validity or any type of fluidity to speak with confidence. You're half asleep. So
Yeah.
I think having a community available to you and individuals that you trust and feel open with, I think is the only way that you can identify how personal habits are impacting your professional ability to execute as a trainer. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, some of the strongest trainers I would say that I've ever met were very humble and were willing to ask for help and really look to seek for guidance. I always had a mentor, right? Like myself, I have, somebody at my gym who I look to and I respect and I ask her questions. And recently I had another trainer, actually a gal that I've actually had problems with, who at a certain point she was like, she saw me doing a movement with a client and she's like, "Hey, like I saw you doing this, like, are you willing to take some advice?" I'm like, "Always." And it was
Oh, I
something
remember
about
this
like,
one.
yeah, it was like a glute action. And I just looked at her and I was like, she's like, "Yeah, like I like doing this." I was like, "Look, have you seen my ass? Like I don't do booty stuff." So like, I mean, like not to be creepy, but she's got glutes. So
She got
for
boots for days.
literally, I mean, her attire would say that she definitely is very showing of the glutes. But anyways, so
Got you. Say
when
less.
when so when she like gave me like advice, she's like, "Are you willing to take advice?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." I mean, look at me, look at you. I'll humble myself to your glute exercises for sure. And in fact, I just did the same glute exercise you showed me today on myself, so I could really feel it out. So yeah, seeking advice and seeking help in those relationships at work, I agree. And I think it's a big point that when you're feeling that type of sensation as a trainer, and maybe you are struggling not just with alcohol, but maybe your sleep or with maybe your diet, is to, instead of trying to hold all that in, to go to somebody and just say like, man, and most of the time it'd be great to have a manager or somebody who's on, staff or even a peer. Don't want to go to your clients,
I
not
don't know,
the-
actually,
not always the
I think you can
best.
go to your clients. Like I don't think you can go necessarily to them for advice on how to fix things, but to
Yeah,
identify where the problem may be. That might also be a secondary thing that you can go do. It's like, hey, all right, the people that have left your 6 a.m. class and didn't sign up or whatever, shoot them a call
right.
and be like, hey, so and so, just no harm, no foul. I get it that you're on to other things. I just want to know so I can refine my craft better. Is there anything I could have been doing, or is there anything that I was doing that was the reason why you left? And just to really give that open space for someone to go, well, actually, just you never show up on time, or you're always unprepared, and I'm just looking for something different with that. I think could be a really big thing for people. But I mean, that's now you're waiting for a client to leave you to find out that there's a problem. So that's not a perfect
Yeah.
solution, but it's something you can do.
Yeah, it's crazy as I just got to the end of this one guy's training cycle, right? And it's kind of coming up to the point of renewal and I'm like working on like, hey, like are you gonna stay on the schedule or not? And one of the biggest things I stopped and I asked at the beginning, I was like, hey, how's your experience been so far? Is there any points of like where you feel like I could improve or that you feel like you need more help? And what did he say? He kind of like a step back. He's like, well, I feel like like the losing the gut would be more of a focus, and you're really great with the strength stuff. I want to do more here, and I just told him like, well, yeah, I can definitely run us through more ab exercises, but just like if I were to try to run you through more bicep exercises, all we're going to do is we're just going to grow that. So it's not necessarily doing the work in here. How's your diet? And he goes, well, I feel like I could definitely use more help on that. I know you gave me some snacking advice, but in calorie counting and yeah, I could use some more help. I'm like, all right, well, let me get you connected. And what did I do?
It's a guy
Sent him
sent
to
to me.
you. That's
Yeah.
the guy I sent to you because I'm like,
Wait a minute. I see where we're going here.
yeah. So I outsourced that. So I'm willing to humble myself to the like, areas that I'm good at and that I'm bad at, and I do ask my clients like, hey, like, where can I be present? And if I would have done that back in the day, back when I was, drinking and, doing that, like if I was able to humble myself and like not think I was the hot shit showing up to my sessions thinking that I was somebody, because I wasn't recognizing how unprepared and how non-professional I really was. I was looking at everybody else that was inside the room and they were all freaking a bunch of alcoholic dirt bags going out drinking and doing drugs on the weekend too. Like,
Yeah. Hard to identify yourself as a shit show when everyone else around you is a shit show. Yeah.
yeah, who was the one person I could probably look at was probably Matt, Mr.
Every
Superman.
everyone can look at Matt and imagine like a 6'2", there 15 minutes early with his
Six
home.
two? He's six
Oh,
four. He's taller
he's
than
six
me.
four. Yeah. But like
Yeah.
a tall guy with perfect hair always early, always had his clipboard. He actually reamed me out once and gave me some phenomenal advice on
Yeah.
I used to show up right at the minute because Mister, I need to fit in everything possible to get as much done as possible.
Right.
And he just really kind of reamed me out in the middle of a meeting. Well, not reamed me out because Matt's like the nicest human being to walk the earth. So
Right.
like in Matt's kind of like reaming out way, dude, like having him tell me that it looks bad. My God, that was a heartbreaking moment for me to like hear
Yeah.
that. But it ended up changing some of my habits. But you got to be willing to get that ego bruised, and that did bruise my ego. It did. Like I will fully admit that.
Yeah.
Man,
I
oh,
would say the one of the
I love
last
that guy.
leading points into, you know, as far as when you're feeling those types of scenarios where you're feeling down or depressed or feel like, like the world's taken out of you is if, one, asking for help or advice is two, making sure that you're going back to the basics is check, do your own check-in, you know, how am I doing? How have I been sleeping? How have I been drinking water? How have I been taking care of myself? Am I getting to sleep on time? How's my screen time? Like all the check-ins that we do with a client to do a self check-in, a report with yourself, like prior to your day and or even at the end of the day to be like, hey, like so I got this new journal that's sitting next to my bed that is kind of like a self-report for the day. Like, hey, what did I do well? What are the things I want to work on? How did the day go? Did I check off things on my list? Did I not? And so it's kind of like a self atonement, like bring yourself back to like a basic. So if you're noticing that every day that you're like, I am feeling drained, I'm fatigued, I didn't show up for my clients, I was late, I was like, here's all the points. What is one thing I can do better tomorrow? And the next day, try to take effort in that one step. Write it out, make it your goal. Put it as a background of the screen on your phone. So every time you pick up your phone, you see it, it says, I will show up 2 minutes early to clients. Boom, done. You're gonna start seeing that. It's gonna self-program. I need to be there 2 minutes early. Like whatever it is. Like that's a great start.
Dude, I like it, man. Well, we are coming up on about an hour here, and I do want to be, conscious of everyone's time. Do you have any last closing advice that you want to give before I wrap this whole thing up with a bow? And I'm kind of putting you on the spot, huh?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing, we have a principle with the AA program, which is, it's based on attraction rather than promotion. And I'm not trying to promote AA in a sense, but I would attract people that if you have a problem and you think it's something that you have an issue with alcohol, find a meeting and go to it and, speak up, raise your hand, talk to somebody in there and try to relate because you are not the only one that's going through that. There's a lot more people around you. In fact, 90% of my staffing with the trainers that I work with now are all sober and recovered and are in the program. I was blown away with how many people that I've met that are actually, they're, as they say, a friend of Bill's. You'll get that if you're in it. But so
I
humble
like it.
yourself. If you think you have an issue, check it out. It worked for me. It could work for you.
Love it. So, if you're a trainer at home and you feel that you might be missing the mark, whatever it is, whether it's from alcohol or what have you, your training business isn't doing great. It isn't living up to its full potential. You're going to have to check your ego. you're going to have to get humble and you're going to have to ask for some semblance of help, or at the very least, identify that you are just not as good as you could be. And that is really hard. That's probably the biggest ego in the room. I'll tell you, putting that ego aside can be very challenging and something that I've struggled with a lot. So I feel you on that one. If you think you need help, seek official help. Actually go out and try to find some group, some semblance of organization like AA that can help you get through whatever you're getting through. But ultimately, you're going to have to ask for help, and nothing's really going to change that. You can use things like self-checks, like your wellness check that you do with your clients, to go ahead and find activities or things that you could be looking for that might not be the way it's supposed to be, or things that you can be doing to rectify issues that you've already identified. But if that doesn't work and you feel you can't do it yourself, find a group, ask trainers, find some semblance of a community, and you will be able to get your issues identified. But it all starts with checking the ego and humbling yourself enough to get advice on what could be better. All right, guys. This has been a fantastic episode. Thank you, Tyler, for sharing. I know there were probably parts of that that weren't like super fun to get into, but I think you've been around the rodeo enough times at this point that, you don't really give a shit.
I love talking about recovery. Honestly, it gets me excited.
Fuck yeah. All right, guys. This has been Memoirs of a Fitness Trainer podcast. We love you, and we'll catch you here in the next one. Appreciate you.